the ladies say. And now the ladies say, welcome to the champagne life, where trouble is a bubble in a champagne glass. Dreams and reality are one and the same. And we gonna do it like this. I got an addiction for life in this land. Like every day is my birthday, I know what I'm getting. And preserve time, that's where I'm sitting. Me and my friends, about sex, missing the independent. Said that my attitude so chill and so crazy.
Greetings, and thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Emanuel Show. Today's interview is very, very special because we have an industry professional here, someone that I had the opportunity to meet well over a decade ago, and he definitely a mentor, a big brother to me. He's been there through all my troubled times in terms of my voice. As you all know, I am not a singer. I wasn't blessed with that, but he was still there to help foster a little bit of singing that I thought I could do. I want to introduce to you all a legend in my eyes, Mr. DoRohn Gough. How are you, sir? How are you today?
Great. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for making your appearance. I appreciate it. I wanted to bring you on the show to show young men and young women out there that the road to success is not easy, but it's definitely worth it once you get to a certain particular point. And I want to share your story with them so that way it would definitely be relatable to them. So I wanted you to just share your story with them and give them a little bit of advice, so to speak.
Absolutely. Well, I guess to understand, I'm 40 years old now.
Okay.
I have been working in the industry professionally for the last 25 years. And grew up in the business. I guess you really could say I literally was born into it. Something that I didn't choose. It's something that he chose me from the beginning.
Okay.
I stand on strong character, the shoulders of people with strong character, strong personalities. The day I was born was the day that my father actually named a record label after me. It was DoRohn Records, and we've been in the industry for 40 years.
All right.
At that time, it was started as a independent gospel label here in the city of Detroit, Michigan. And so, and of course, literally my dad, who he's known as the mayor of gospel music, of course, he just, actually, in the last, I want to say maybe 10 to 15 years, he established the International Gospel Music Hall of Fame and Museum. And so, but just a go-getter mentality, go-getter personality, my dad, David L. Gough, was. And so, pretty much I came into the business because of his passion and his love for it. And so just kind of going as a kid, a lot of times going into the studios with him, whether he was recording his own projects or signing other acts coming up, I was exposed to a lot of some of the most creative beings, whether it's musicians, producers, even people in film and TV, and as well as engineers or whatever. I was just inundated with so many people that were passionate about what it is that they love to do. And once again, of course, my passion for music, I started playing drums when I was 2 years old. And then, of course, got interested in keyboards maybe around 10 or 11. But there was a station that existed in the 80s strongly. I mean, even probably in the 70s, but definitely in the 80s, because I was born in 1978. So literally there was a station called 97.1 Joy FM. It was the easy listening station. And as a kid, I was always the one that was, in this particular station actually, it kind of featured a lot, anywhere between Frank Sinatra and at the hottest record at that time, Michael Jackson, Thriller, in 1984. And everything in between. You talk about Don't Even Make My Brown Eyes Blue, songs like that. And It was a country hit record back then. Of course, Kenny Rogers through the years, and then you had James Ingram, Just Once, and you know, just this melting pot of music. And I was literally the one that was always kind of listening to and paying attention to everything that was happening in the background. Couldn't understand why. Couldn't have told you a lyric of a song. I would be making my own lyrics up, but melodies had just engulfed me. And I became extremely passionate about it, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And so those were the things that I remember growing up that kind of gave me a precursor of what it probably what it was I would be doing for the rest of my life.
Okay.
It was my very first, I would have to say, if there was a thing considered as a real job, my very first real job was at 11 years old, and it was also my last one.
Okay.
11 years old, I was a caddy for this historic place called Plum Hollow. Caddy, of course, is people who works for people in Gough, and so we clean the clubs and we carry the clubs and what have you. 3 weeks, and by the third week, there was a situation that happened where the golfer felt like I wasn't cleaning his golf clubs enough. And so at that point, he says, "Hey, you're not cleaning them up. Let me show you." So we had to bring our own towels from home. So I had to bring my mom's towel from home. And he took the towel and said, "Let me show you how we." And so he went ahead and took my towel and hopped and spit in my towel and started cleaning it. He says, "That's how you clean it." And at that point, I was heavily interested in the NBA, in basketball, of course, Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, all these different basketball players in the 80s or what have you. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, we were inspired as kids and we wanted to be. So I made a decision then. I said, either I'm going to make it to the NBA or I am going to, this music thing is just going to have to work. But I'm not going to be working for anybody in my entire life. And I made that decision at 11 years old. And that was the last day I worked, and never worked a day in my life. 3 weeks. It was that golf. My last name is Gough. It was the game of golf that taught me that to become yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to become what you were created to be. And it was because from that passion, so that from that day, of course, basketball was always a passion, but music was always there. And figured out when the smoke cleared, music was it. And it was just something that was natural. We owned our own studio for like 20 years straight. And so I was constantly there, inspired by the likes of, Teddy Riley, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Rodney Jerkins, Timbaland. I mean, just the list of names goes on. And so I began listening to them, listening to a lot of their production. Quincy Jones, David Foster. I'm talking about just whatever it is, of whatever the perfect ideal of a producer was, that's what I wanted to become. So I literally would take their records and really try to reduplicate exactly what I was hearing. Tried to get, down to the fine detail of the thing. Tried to figure out what piano sound was that, what keyboard sound was that, what filter, what cutoff on the loop bass, like literally. And I would never leave the studio. I started producing when I was 15 years old. So fast forward, and of course under my dad's tutelage, of course working under his record label, I was one of the main producers there. One of I guess since we're talking about my story, one of the main things I want to kind of get across to anybody who'll be listening is I feel like a mentor is extremely important because you have to have that person that is literally doing what it is that you want to do right now. And so I was looking up the likes of Babyface and Teddy Riley back in the 90s. These were two figures that was ruling black radio. Yep. And so, every time you turn on a song, it was either one of them two records, or Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, what have you. But there was this group of couple of brothers who I'd always heard of, who go by the name of Kern and Valdez Bradley. Brothers here in the city of Detroit, and they grew up, and they have been the MDs to the stars for a lot of years. I'm talking about from, Mary J. Blige to Biggie Smalls when he was alive. Now even Valdez was MD for Usher for last 20, 25 years. Kern, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, You know, list goes on, Destiny's Child, you name it. These guys were it, and they still are, even to this day. They're still working. And so one day, literally, I had a chance to, my father, who was, of course, executive producing his own projects, and he ran across Valdez, and he came to, Valdez came to the studio. No, actually, I'll tell you what, I'll take it back. He came to my room, my father, and says, hey, do you know Valdez, Brantley, Colonel Valdez? I said, who? And it was as if he told me, do you know Babyface? Do you know? It was that same type of respect. He says, yeah, Valdez will be producing my next project. Immediately, I said, oh my God, like, that was my moment to, so finally, he ended up making his way to the studio there on 6 Mile, and my brother came and got me and told me that, you know, Valdez and Kern is in the control room. I went to grab my pen and grab my pad and paper, what have you, my notebook, and I rushed. And this time I was in college. I just had entered my first year in college, and so. And I wasn't at class that day. I made sure I skipped class. You know, you have to make some sound decisions in order for you to actually go ahead and move forward with what it is that you want to do. And so nothing else mattered to me at the time. You know, so basically I made my way from the piano practice room and there in the studio, and went to the other control room, and I said hello to Kern. Says, Kern, pleasure to meet you. And I immediately focused my attention to Valdez, because Valdez Brantley literally was the programmer of a lot of these shows, even though Kern was like the MD or the musical director of a lot of these big time shows, the producer of these live shows. And but Valdez was more of what I wanted to be as far as what I felt like my specific role. And so I went to him, I told him, I said, as an aspiring musician and an aspiring producer, it would be an honor for me for you to sign my autograph my book. He looked at me, and he says, man, put that thing away. We're going to be cool. And we were. Like, for the next 10 years, he literally took me under his wing. Wow. I was with him the day that Jermaine Dupri contacted him for Usher. Because at that point, Usher literally, he was a new artist, but his shows were horrible. And he really didn't blow up until his shows had improved. And Valdez was the foundation of that. So I was part of a lot of history coming up. My very first gig, literally came in 1999, professional gig, I should say, in 1999. Now, prior to this, I was helping my dad at the company. We had broke out a lot of different new acts in the gospel world. And of course, Esther Smith wasn't a new act, but she was the foundation of our company at the time. Of course, we had Eastern Mission Gospel Choir, which you and I had met, which was for me, that was my very first baby. Like, my dad had given me an opportunity to say, hey, listen, I'm depending on you. Everything that you've learned, now just show me what you learned. And he gave it to me, and it was great. Eastern Mission Gospel Choir, RXG was a rap group at that time. And of course, King the Franchise, I think we interviewed too. And just a number of different acts or whatever, we had a chance to be able to exercise what it is that I've learned from Valdez and from a number of different folk up until that time. So then finally, 1999, I had a chance to actually go out. This was my very first professional gig. I was touring on Whitney Houston's last world tour. Now, if you remember, in February 11th, I believe it was 2011, that was the day that Whitney Houston passed away. And they kept talking about this this world tour, 1999, and they kept publicizing it. And I'm looking at it, and I says, I was there. And I didn't... You never know how far away from history you, you never know how you're actually making history until you're far removed from it. And didn't know that was Whitney Houston's last world tour that everybody kept talking about. But yeah, I was actually one of the musicians there. We opened up for a band called 112 that was signed to Diddy's Bad Boy at the time. And so that's what we were playing for. And then, of course, after that, 2 months of that was great. Went back to Eastern, finished up, and ended up eventually marrying the love of my life, Sharita Gough.
Sharita, how is Sharita?
So Sharita is phenomenal. We have 4 kids now.
Okay.
But
Wow.
that is my wife. That is my girlfriend. That's my best friend. We got married in 2003, and so that was the day that changed our lives, and of course a lot of people's lives, because we had Dr. Miles Monroe marry us at that time, and it was just a great day. And so 15 years later, here we are. Our kids, Deja, our oldest daughter Deja, David, Destin, and Destiny, and those are my reason why.
Wow.
I have you. So Gough family of 6, and but yeah, we ended up marrying, and then at that point, we maybe about a year and a half, 2 years later, she ended up getting pregnant. And I was just in the transition, because here I was playing for churches and whatever productions I could do. But it seemed like at that point, a lot of things were starting to fail. Churches were starting to downsize, and they couldn't afford musicians anymore. And a lot of local opportunities was not presenting itself. And I had to make a faith decision. It was like a decision of, are you going to really believe what I've created you to be, literally coming from God's perspective. And so this thing ended up happening, and there was a new artist named Chris Brown at the time. And so I received that call. Was able to do that gig. We left out February of 2006, and never will forget, February 11th, 2006. And it was just like a dream come true. Here I was, I didn't have no money. And I hopped on a plane to New York, and all of a sudden I come off the plane, and they were handing me money, like immediately, like just based on, I'm just talking about the results of passion and what it can really do for you. It can take you on a whirlwind. Yeah. And I'm telling you, it's like you can go from 0 to 60 in a blink of an eye. So we started touring with him. This was during his first album days. And of course, just the hype of everything's like, wow, but you're there to do a job at the same time, so you have to remain focused. And so then from that point, we ended up touring with him. Then there was this new wave of artists between Chris Brown, Neo, Rihanna, all these different things. So Chris Brown and Neo ended up doing, that same year, they did a headline tour called Up Close and Personal.
I remember that.
So we were the one band for both Chris Brown and Neo. Underscore Car, Lil Wayne, get that, Underscore Car, the Franchise Boys, all these different things, or different artists or whatever, that was just kind of on the bubble come up. And so then finally, our relationship started developing more with Neo. And so Neo had taken a liking to what it is who it is I was as a musician. He found out that I was a producer, and I just had these buttloads of tracks that I was doing, and he wanted to take a listen to it. So he ended up receiving a CD, and he was asking for another CD, and management was asking for another CD. They kept losing the CD over and over again. That's what you have to be patient in the process. And so this last time, we were on the set of Jay Leno. I'll never forget Jay Leno's show, at the Late Show, and we were literally, I want to say we were at the set of the cafeteria. We were eating, and so Neil asked for the CD again. He's trying to eat food at this time. He says, "Hey, can I get that CD?" I says, "Bro, this is like in the span of 5 to 7 months has passed now. We've been off and on the road, traveling around the world." I said, "What happened?" He's like trying to choose food. He says, I went back to my management. They was looking at me with like a deer in headlights, but it was this one that I was really feeling. And he hummed the melody of the tune that he was talking about. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he's got to be serious, because tons of music comes to him all the time. Right. And so 2 weeks later goes by. He ended up giving me all his personal contact information. Told me to send it directly to him. Don't send it to nobody else. Went back home. We had some time off. And I get an email from him says, "Hey, I wrote a smash hit I was talking about. Either Michael or Janet's going to do it." Now, anybody says those two names, Michael or Janet, you ain't second guessing. Not at all. So that was the turning point. And then he turns around and tells me, he says, "Do you have any management? How would you like to come over to the compound?" Now, once again, you don't know that you're making or you're a part of history until you're far removed from it. I had no idea that compound was just starting. So I was, along with this slew of now superstar producers,
Mm-hmm.
the likes of Chuck Harmony, Shay Taylor, who did Beyonce 4. I mean, just a whole host of people. And we were just helping Neo with this Compound Entertainment that was subsidiary under the whole Universal Def Jam era, which of course Jay-Z was running at that time. So come to find out, smoke cleared. They said that Janet ended up getting the record. It was a record called Can't Be Good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say this, that there was a God moment for me during this time, because they ended up receiving that record, L.A. Reid and Janet Jackson at that time. And I would have to tell you that I had no idea, because there was some news that kind of broke out. Jermaine Dupri ends up backing off of, he was dating Janet at the time, I think it was 2007. This is Jermaine Dupri backs off of Girlfriend's project. And so I'll never forget, I was writing down 696, and I said, I wonder what happened. I had no clue. And so then finally, Neo's manager contacted me later that week and says, you do know what happened? I says, I have no idea what happened. What happened? So he says, well, Janet was already scheduled, had the tour scheduled already, and she was already in the midst of her rehearsals. 9 to 10 records done with her project.
Wow.
They received your record, Can't Be Good. They ended up canceling all of the rehearsals, canceled the entire tour, and scrapped the entire project of 9 to 10 records that Jermaine Dupri had helped produce, and says, this Can't Be Good record is the new direction we need to go in.
Wow.
So that was, for me, it was a defining moment. Now, I would have to tell you, I feel like there was purpose in the whole entire thing, because I had already made a decision. I told God before all the major breaks, I said, if you give me a chance, I promise you that I will, whatever was not provided for me, that I will be that channel for other people. And, you know, Motown had came and gone, you know, and there was really no channel for us at that time, because everybody was, you know, anybody that was getting signed, they would end up leaving and uprooting and going to where the opportunity was, but nobody was actually establishing something here back in Michigan. And I promised God that, you know, I won't do that. Like, it's not that I will never leave or never move, but there will be I'll commit a season in my life where I will be the channel that I didn't receive from myself. And so when this thing started happening, signed a new production deal to a record label, major placement that became earth-shattering with this major artist. It was just a whirlwind, and we started working with Diddy's group, Day 26, or the Bad Boy label. Then, of course, naturally with Neo, what have you. Of course, the record that I'm known for today, Champagne Life, that I produced in 2010. Kim did some work with Mindless Behavior. And even now, like, it's just, the work is just continues to keep going.
It's piling up.
And what have you. So it's like one of those things where I just really believe that in my whole heart, God honored it, because of, I really was kind of seeing really beyond myself. It really wasn't about myself. It was really about being able to establish something that others can be able to be successful for. And so now you talk about this turnaround. My dad, who just passed at the end of last year, and so now the seat that he created, DoRohn Entertainment, DoRohn Records, I'm now sitting as president and CEO of that company.
That's good.
And we're developing new ideas. Matter of fact, we're partnered with two other brands, and we've developed this new brand called Banjay that we're really excited about.
Yes, I had a chance to see Banjay yesterday, but day before
yesterday. Day before yesterday.
Yes.
And thank you for coming, because I really wanted you to see. I says, you know, there's a past and a present, there's a future, and I says, this is the future. This is really my way of being able to give back and fulfill another promise that I said, that I want to be able to channel for so many others and what have you. And so I think it's something that we're releasing in the corporate markets, but it's just going to be just earth-shattering when you see it, when you experience it. And it gives artists a chance to be able to connect with brands, and we're just extremely excited about it. It really is Artist Development 101. Only this time, the artists don't have to pay. They get paid for doing it.
Right.
And for creating that channel for them. So that's what we're excited about.
I like that. I like that. Who inspires you now?
I'm glad you asked that question. Because recently, I just actually had a coming to Jesus moment. And this is me opening up. I will really have to say that in the drive, and you can become so passionate about what it is that you do that you kind of forget about what's important. And so literally, me and my wife actually just talked about this not too long ago. And I said, you know, when I told Sheree, I says, I feel like I've put music in front of my family. And that changes. That changes. Like I told you, there are my reasons why. And it was something that I had to it wasn't a pill, it was a really heavy pill that I had to swallow. But I came to grips with it, and now they're my inspirations. They're my reasons why. Like, first is God, and then it's them, and it's really, and after that, it becomes my purpose, my assignment. I always tell people all the time, I'm an ambassador for the kingdom of God in the entertainment industry, literally providing opportunities for those who are less fortunate. So that's what drives me every day. That's what wakes me up, and that's what keeps me focused.
Okay. If you had to sum your life up in 3 words, what would they be?
Distinguished, committed, and passionate.
Name something that you can't live without.
Can't live without the Word of God. That's what I came to realize even more so recently.
Okay.
It's like, and it's not a religious thing. I don't want people to get this, like, it's not even a religious thing. I've come to realize it's bigger than that. It is, and I get a chance and an opportunity to actually live out what He's spoken over my life. And
I agree with you on that.
To me, I just feel like that's a whole nother world that people have become afraid of at a lot of times, because you know, you talk about the religiosity, and that's nothing but a distraction from what it really entails. Like, I've traveled on 2 or 3 private jets. I've sat with kings, and I can sit here and tell you that it would not have been possible if I didn't listen to that word. That my grandfather was constantly instilling, my grandmother, who just passed away early this year, my father, my mother, who constantly prays for me every single day. And I literally, she and I had a talk. And I said, listen, this is your job for me, and I will take care of you. I just need you to pray every single day. I need you to pray for our businesses. I need you to pray every single day. Just stand before God, and that's your responsibility. And I promise you, I'll take care of you.
Wow. This leads me to my next question. What do you pray for now?
I pray for...
After all the success.
Absolutely.
What do you pray?
I pray for my kids, my children, that, number one, that they don't have to necessarily go through the struggles that I have to go through. For them still, number two, that they literally, the time would decrease from them actually, them finding out their purposes and their reason why, and then them fulfilling it. Like, that time has to be cut short, and I'm trying to do everything in my power to make sure that that is reality. You know, I got nominated for my first Grammy in 2012, and I just know that if I had even had a more commitment, that time would have been shorter. Because distractions comes, and it is real. But you have to zone out. You have to zone in just to zone out. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, you know, of course, let a kid be a kid. Let them go through their stages. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for my mistakes. You know? but we all make them. We all make them. But at the same token, man, you know, I have a friend who has a song out now called "Let It Bake," and it is a powerful thing. Literally, if you can really come to grips that all things literally works for your good, then you just ride and cruise. You know what I mean? So it's just a powerstand thing, man, to be able to understand it and to recognize it.
Yes, I completely understand that. Absolutely. I completely agree with all that I've had to deal with in terms of the show. Some things I had to wrap my mind around, some things I dealt with I didn't never think that I would have to deal with.
For sure.
It really taught me to sit back, just let it unfold. Everything is going to work itself out. Absolutely. One major problem that I personally was having was dealing with my emotion and how to cope with when things go wrong.
Yeah.
How many times I've had to stop and restart. This is a 5-year process for me, and now I finally I'm starting to feel like the train is going now.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of any derailments at this particular point. I'm ready, so to speak, after so much that I've had to deal with and cope with. So I completely agree with you in that. I'm done. This you talked and you did exactly what I wanted you to do. Thank you so much. I encourage you all to watch this story, go back and understand who you are as a person. If you have a passion, if you have a goal in life, study it. Take your craft and really make it your craft. Make it your own. I want to thank you all again for watching another episode of the Emanuel Show. I want everybody that's watching this particular episode to hone in on the story and understand what he was saying in regards to your craft. Take your craft very, very seriously and make your craft your craft. I want you all to know that what you're going through right now is just a testament to what you have to go through to get to where you want to be. Thank you so much for watching another episode. I will see you all next time. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless you. I want to thank you all for watching another episode of the Emanuel Show. Here's a sneak peek of what's coming next week.
That's a really tough question. I never thought I would be married, first of all, and I never thought I would have kids, because that was just never a goal of mine. But now that I'm here in the moment of it, it is the greatest experience that has ever happened to me, and it has completely changed my life and me as a person. And my little boy saved my life. He's just a beautiful, just intelligent, just happy, and you know, I could be going through the worst day of my life, and all a kid has to do is smile and bat his long eyelashes. Meanwhile, I have like 4 coats of mascara on. So, that's great.
To see this episode and many more like it, I ask you guys to watch and log on to www.emanuelshow.com. We also ask you guys to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, tweet us, and become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. I thank you all again for watching. Follow us on all of our
We're trying to recreate old Hollywood with this whole thing.
Everything. We want to know your
Mellow it out a little bit. You can stand up if you want to, or you can sit down and relax, have a drink, and just enjoy the festivities. Actually, I prefer it if you did it that way. That means I don't gotta work as hard. But tonight is about having a good time. So y'all ready to have a good time? Let me make some noise.